Thank you for joining us at the Roundtable.
Brought to you by Community Education Arts, a nonprofit organization based in Noblesville, Indiana.
I'm Alice Cavanis-Gober, president of CEArts.
And I'm Sarah E. Morin, secretary of CEArts. Let's sit down at the Roundtable. You're at the Roundtable, and we are back with Thomas Kneeland Johnson. And last time we focused on you as an individual artist in your journey. And this time, Thomas, we'd love to have you tell us about the Kneeland Center for Poetry.
Absolutely. The Kneeland Center for Poetry is a 501c3 organization, and we strive to discover, cultivate, and enhance the voices and works of underrepresented poets by providing poetry workshops and other enriching medium in order to get poets to be the best versions of themselves.
Excellent. And I browsed through your website because by the way, this is a very polished website. I love your design. I was looking through some of the projects and the programs that you have. Can you tell us about some of these? Like what's this Prolific Poet Workshop that's coming up?
Yeah, so actually, we're getting ready to go into our third poetry workshop. So we started in June, and so the Prolific Poet Workshop is a workshop for poets of all experience levels, from the beginning poet, the poet who never knew he or she was a poet, to the published poet. And so I provide a very low commitment workshop for participants virtually during COVID-19. And so our participants have found this workshop to be very useful. They've learned some of the basics of poetry, like what is poetry, what type of forms can you use in poetry. And then we also aim to eliminate some of the stereotypes that exist against poetry already. And so for your average person, when you ask them to read a poem, they'll say, oh my God, I don't want to read a poem. Like, I'm not even gonna understand it. Right. And so, but I think that is because when most people think of a poem, they're thinking of Shakespeare or John Donne or Robert Frost, which they're all great writers, all great poets, right? But we should also look at the more modern poets too, like myself and Rowan Ricardo Phillips and Rupi Kaur. You know, some of those poets who, you know, write in the times that are relevant, that more people can actually relate to. Mm-hmm. So.
Yeah, you hit on one of our favorite topics because we started talking about like Insta poets at a workshop that we did last fall, and about how that is reaching, you know, a whole new generation that, you're right, otherwise would be put off by what is this inaccessible stuff written in the 1800s.
Right, yeah. Exactly, yeah. Which we still love that inaccessible stuff too, but
we do. Yeah.
That's a wonderful thing about being creative. You can reach back into history and draw inspiration from all those authors that, you know, I like to say kind of forced to study in school, but you know, you're really able to you know, bring your own current life and world and perspective and expertise into your writing with that as your, you know, back in the clouds of your brain. All that old stuff is perking away too. So that's pretty cool. Yeah.
And I believe I saw that if folks were interested in the one that's coming up soon, that they can just sign up right on your website, right?
Yep, that's right. Yeah, so the form is open. The submissions will close on August the 9th because we'll get started on August the 10th. And so the structure for this class is it's a 4-week workshop. And we meet virtually every Friday for the first 3 Fridays. And so at the end of the workshop, which ends on a Thursday, we'll have a live Zoom poetry reading / open mic.
Very cool.
So it allows the participants to read some of their poems and maybe have questions from the audience. And then after that, people will be able to join into the Zoom or the Facebook Live to read some of their own work that they've come up with.
Oh, that's great. Yeah, and I love that we're still able to connect as artists in this pandemic and to reach out. Yeah. Are you getting anyone from even outside the local area that, because of the magic of technology, can come in now?
Absolutely. So in our last workshop, we had a participant from China.
Wow.
We were actually classmates in undergrad, and he just moved to China. So
that's a time difference, you know. So,
it's a 12-hour time difference, and he would get up at 6:30 his time, and meet with us for an hour or two. Like, we'll just sit and workshop the poems and get best practices for revising them and so on and so forth. But also we've had participants from Missouri, Mississippi, Chicago, California. So we've had a lot of engagement with this. And so I'm really excited about what it's been able to do so far. So yeah.
Oh, that's wonderful.
Yeah. That's
and I want to make sure for the folks at home that we state your website very clearly. It's thekneelandcenter.org.
That's right.
Kneelandcenter.org.
Yep.
Great. Alice, did I interrupt you? Did you have a question for Thomas?
No, I think I was going to apologize because I think in our last episode I said the Kneeland Project instead of the Kneeland Center. So if I can figure out how to edit that, I will. In our recordings, but if not, I hereby apologize. I was doing that from memory, not from looking at notes, which is a bad thing for me. I need to have notes in front of me all the time. I did want to say, please do encourage your poets. We initially got in contact with each other wanting to have our two organizations see how we could work together. And Community Education Arts, like I said, we have an online arts showcase that includes writing. It's not just visual art. So it's poetry, prose, it can be songs, song lyrics, whatever. And so please encourage your poets to submit something to us. The one that's coming up, the deadline is August 9th, and the theme is changes. So anything under the idea of things changing, which, in our world is like every day. So please encourage them to go on our website, CEArts.org, CEArts, and find the online arts showcase page of our website and submit some stuff, because I'd love to share some of their work on our website too.
Awesome.
Not mutually exclusive. We can all share each other's work. So
absolutely.
And I'm it's very exciting when your organization gets participation from far away. I think that's really great.
Yeah.
Been doing a
it's
really
pretty
gratifying, isn't it? Yeah.
And if I may just include this too, one of the other programs that we have is the Elevation Review, which is our online poetry publication published quarterly. Mm-hmm. And so our first issue comes out on August the 17th.
Wow. Congratulations.
We recently just closed our submissions for the first issue, but we received, I think, 141 total submissions for our first issue. Yeah. And so those submissions did not just come from Indiana, Noblesville. They came from all over the globe.
That's
wonderful. So, India, the UK, probably almost every state in this country. It's been amazing to see some of the writing, some of the backgrounds of the writers, and so we're excited for this issue to come out. And so, if I may, I would love to encourage everyone to check out our website, theelevationreview.com, for our next issue, which comes out in November. And we're accepting submissions for the November issue as well.
Cool.
That's wonderful. Another thing I want to be sure that we mention is your podcast. Tell us about that.
Yeah, so the Like Minds podcast, it actually started off with me just reading poems and talking about what type of poem it is and, you know, how you can write this poem for yourself. But the next season is coming really soon. And so for this next season, we'll be featuring other poets. And so if you've ever heard Tracy K. Smith's podcast, it's called the Slowdown. She features a different poet every day.
Wow.
While we won't be doing every day, but we will be featuring new poets in that podcast. So
That's great.
I can tell both by the fact it's on your website, but just from talking to you today, that one of your great passions is making sure that poetry is accessible for everyone. And I see that mission through everything that you're doing through the Kneeland Center for Poetry.
Yeah.
That's
I strongly believe that, you know, in my own experience as a writer, you know, years ago I put out a poem and it'll be declined in like a week or so, you know, and, you know, I'll go back and revise it, but I didn't have the courage to like submit it again because I was afraid, oh, well, what if it's denied again?
Yeah.
You know, and even while we want, you know, poetry to be accessible to all underrepresented writers and poets, you know, there's still going to be some that won't quite fit the mold, but that doesn't mean they won't ever make it.
Right.
What that means is that there's, in addition to saying, hey, you know, we love this poem, but maybe this isn't the fit for this issue.
Right.
Maybe you could submit it for our next issue, or you could attend one of our workshops and learn how to craft this poem so that it's the strongest that it can be. Right. So
It's
we
that
don't want to
encouragement. It's the encouragement that matters, and that's what makes a difference to especially emerging artists. I think people who haven't had a lot of experience with submitting, getting rejected, getting accepted. I mean, it's a roller coaster, you know, and you have those great moments when something got accepted and you just are just crushed when they pick someone else, you know, and being encouraging and supportive to those people out there who are either just beginning to submit things, or maybe they've been writing for a very long time, but they've never actually had the courage to submit, you know. I think that's a really important role as an organization. We strive to do that too, and it's kind of bumpy sometimes because people you know, it's so personal. Their writing, their artwork, their creations are so personal that you know, to kind of suggest that this particular piece needs a little bit more work or something, that can be it can be taken as a hurtful thing for some people, and we certainly, no one ever means it that way. It's just like you said, it just might not fit exactly perfectly with this particular project or publication, but we want to encourage the growth of making it a better piece of artwork, and that's kind of hard sometimes. But I think everybody tries to, you know, at least the three of us definitely try to be supportive of other artists and include as many voices as possible in the things that we publish, the projects that our organizations do, in our workshops and things. It sounds like your organization and our organization have a lot of those same goals. So yay for us, you know.
Thomas, did you have anything else that you wanted to tell us about the projects that you're working on at the Kneeland Center?
Yeah, so there are a couple of projects that we're currently still molding, projects and events that we're still molding. And so one of them is, or two of them, the Golden Quill Poets and the Black Quill Poets. So at some point when, you know, COVID is lifted, I want to get into the high schools, and try to get poetry into some of the hearts and minds of the high schoolers. And so how I envision that is, they'll spend 7 weeks with me, not every day, but maybe once a week. And they'll have time to write poems, kind of like review them with each other. And at the end of the 7 weeks, they'll have a collective, book of poetry that they can call their own, something that they've contributed to. They can take it with them to college. They can say, hey, I actually was a part of this publication. If they're going into writing or journalism, it's something that they can add to their resume and list of, accomplishments, and that also helps to develop the next generation of prolific writers too.
Yeah.
The other one is the Black Quill Poets. And so that is basically the same structure, but for adults.
Mm-hmm.
And so the adults would spend 5 weeks compiling a collaborative book of poetry. Yeah, and so it's kind of like those co-author books that you may see all the time, like that, but for poetry. And so again, it's like if they're planning to publish more, that just gives them an extra, push, to keep going.
Mm-hmm.
And some of the events that we're currently planning, I've met with Noble Coffee and Tea in Uptown Cafe.
Mm-hmm.
And we're planning to have a poetry and painting event.
Great.
So, if someone chooses to paint, they can paint with inspiration from a poem.
Mm-hmm.
And if someone chooses to write a poem, they can write the poem from the painting's inspiration.
Very good. Yeah.
And then with Uptown Cafe, I want to create a safe and healthy social distancing space for poetry workshops in the evening at Uptown Cafe. And so they're all on board with the ideas, but more logistics are being put into it. And so as soon as we finalize those details, it will be out for the community to see.
Very cool. That'll be cool.
I'm getting excited just hearing you talk about these things.
Now, so what we love. It's what we love. All this poetry out there in the world. Although for me, it's going to have to be in here, but no, that's very exciting. All those projects and events and things that you're planning. So, well, I really think we've probably reached about the end of our discussion here. Is there anything else that you want to add for the Kneeland Center?
Let's see.
Email contact.
Oh, well, yeah, that'd be great. Yeah. So the Kneeland Center can be reached on several platforms: Facebook, Instagram. We're working on Twitter.
Working on his. It's hard to get all those social media balls in the air at the same time, isn't it?
Yeah. So you can just look up the Kneeland Center on Facebook, or the Kneeland Center Poetry on Instagram. And our email contact is info@thekneelandcenter.org.
Awesome.
For the elevation review, the same thing applies. You can find us on Instagram and Facebook. And we also have a submission portal, which is the elevationreview.submittable.com.
Very good. Thank you. Thank you so much for joining us today, Thomas. We really enjoyed learning more about your organization, and we look forward to working with your organization on mutual sharing of poets, sharing of poetry, sharing of projects. I think we'll have a long and healthy relationship with our two organizations. Yay!
Thank you so much.
This has been At the Round Table with Alice
And Sarah E.
of Community Education Arts.
Our nonprofit organization is based in Noblesville, Indiana. You can find us online at CEArts.org. We'd like to thank James Weston for writing our intro music and for his technical savvy.
Join us next time
At the Round Table.